Welcome in TNCradio.live on a Monday night, and that means it's time for Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. I'm Tom Kelly, and we're going to be here with you for the next hour, talking about all sorts of different things. But I want to start off, Dr. Cortman, talking about you were pretty much close to ground zero for Hurricane Ian that came blowing through there a few days ago. So wanted to ask you a couple of questions about that before we jump in talking more about the social black belt. First of all, how'd you fare the storm?
Remarkably well. I mean, completely unscathed. I'm very, very grateful and relieved. At the same time, I feel guilty because my being unscathed means somebody else got it and was exposed to the wrath of Ian, as we were not. I may have alluded in previous shows to the notion that my place sits 125 yards away from the Gulf of Mexico, which most of the time looks like a lake out there. It's always so calm and peaceful and warm. But the wrath of a hurricane puts me in the most vulnerable place. And for 35 years now that I've owned this place, I've always wondered, when will the big one hit here? And it still hasn't. And I'm really impressed and amazed and grateful. But I've seen so many storms come by and they hit other places. They hit the Panhandle, or they hit Miami, or they hit Naples. This one was more Fort Myers. And that's only, that's like 40-something miles north of Naples and, an hour away from us. But we're always on the good side of the storm, meaning that the sea does not come rushing in. In fact, it's kind of sucked out to sea. The amazing thing, when you're this close to the water, my place didn't even lose power.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. Wow. I evacuated because it's required when you're on what's called a barrier island. And where I went, lost power. Oh, but, and this is a true story. This is the kind of thing you can't make up. We returned home to see what happened to the storm, and absolutely nothing. I mean, happened to the house in the storm. After the storm was over, it was like, oh my God, the air conditioning's still running. The power's still on. And then within a few hours, Florida Power and Light came out to help repair some of the neighbor condominium, and they knocked our power out. Oh, God. I was like, wait a minute, aren't you guys in the business of repairing? The storm survived the hurricane, and you knocked our power out. Amazing. It's kind of like when you give your car to the valet for safety, and he steals it. It's like, I was counting on you guys as being the ones who help fix things, not destroy. But they had it back in a few hours.
Wow.
But anyway, so much to be grateful for, and then just sad seeing human suffering, especially when it takes its toll on a lot of people who don't have much of anything. And some of those people are just homeless. And of course, there were deaths of people who did not evacuate. And they didn't get the impression that it was anything they needed to run from. So, it's hard to celebrate somebody else's misery. I've always found that to be, on one hand, a relief, and on the other hand, feeling sad and kind of guilty about other people getting nailed.
Right. Well, you're talking to me. I'm sure most of the people you've talked to this week live there and have their hurricane stories and all that kind of stuff. But talking to a lot of people, many of whom have never been through a hurricane or maybe even a large natural disaster. Tell me the overall sense of the people who live there. I mean, a lot of relief, or are you doing therapy again already?
Yeah, I had a full day today.
And
The relief is palpable, but so is the trauma for some.
right.
There are people who are really traumatized, and it doesn't matter that their house was spared, just the whole event. Even watching the Weather Channel, this is their ratings week, so to speak, and they keep using words like catastrophic, and they say nobody's out of the woods yet, and it's going to be a Category 5, and the storm surge is going to be 10 to 12 feet, and there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of apprehension, and fear, and the powerlessness. I mean, people just feel completely at the mercy of a storm, or whatever. It's like, I don't have any power. There's only so much you can do. You get batteries, you fill your car up, you get some water, you board up if you can, and evacuate, and then you got nothing. You have as little control as a sports fan watching the big game. You can try all kinds of things to manipulate an outcome, but it's just not yours to control.
Right. And so are people, I'm trying to come up with the right way to ask this. Are they recovering in a healthy way? How do you help them through a time like this?
Starting from 8 o'clock this morning, my very first patient, she felt really hurt by some people that she thought she could count on to help her out a little more when she had to be evacuated. And she just, on one hand, she had these feelings of being abandoned and hurt and betrayed and mistreated. On the other hand, she's like, my whole block was spared, but the one next to us wasn't. And so there was all this relief and gratitude. And, I'm listening to her and almost laughing, going, your feelings are all over the place. And it's like they're diametrically opposed, but all of the above are true at the same time. And that's what I wanted her to understand. Every one of these feelings that you have is real and merits, expression and release. And then we need to put this all back together again, like Humpty Dumpty after the fall. And that means, let's pick up the pieces and, where do we go from here? What do you need to be doing? How do you respond to life doing this to you? I saw people on the Weather Channel or one of the news networks I don't even know, but they were saying, everything I have was destroyed and I don't even know what to do next. They were just feeling like, I don't have a plan. And that's one of the first things I would always say to people. You have all these feelings that need to be addressed and appropriately expressed. We have to grieve losses. And then we need a plan. We need to sit down and put together a plan of attack, even if that means call your insurance guy or find a place where you could stay for a while, talk to relatives or friends, or, you need a plan. We need to move forward. And so there's problem solving, there's appropriate grief expression, there's getting support and comfort from other people, there's humbling yourself and being able to ask for help, and right. Humbling yourself and being able to receive help and express appropriate gratitude rather than trying to be an island where I don't need anybody's help. I'll do this all myself. That kind of false pride. And, a lot of people would say, try to make a difference where you can. Get your mind out of your own stuff and help somebody else. I remember a guy, Tom, who was hired by FEMA to go to New Jersey after the horrible storm Sandy.
Right.
It just devastated the entire East Coast there. It was just what they called at the time the perfect storm. And, he had to go to a very wealthy neighborhood along the Jersey Shore And he told me about his experiences. And one of the things he said is that he went into this one home and there was some basement flooding, but not bad. This is a beachfront home, several $1 million home. And the people were just complaining and negative and, very self-piteous and angry and resentful, just feeling picked on by the powers that be. And further on down the block, there was a person whose house really got trashed. But this person was going up and down trying to help feed the neighbors and trying to make a difference anywhere they can. And they couldn't, and their attitude was one of selflessness. Like, where can I make a difference? Who can I help? How can I demonstrate some hope and some love to some people who were suffering? And this guy was really just interesting and entertaining in his expression of, it's never really what happens to us. It's always how we explain it to ourselves. Psychologists call that our explanatory style.
Right.
And one person always has a way of seeing themselves as on the short end of things, frustrated and defeated and overwhelmed and picked on, whereas somebody else is just so grateful and happy to be alive. And how can I make a difference? And I'll serve.
Yeah, I am so happy and relieved that you all weathered the storm well.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your concern. And, once again, I can only say grateful and wanting to make a difference wherever possible.
Absolutely. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, come back, and jump back into the social black belt and what tonight's truth is, and kind of keep moving on with that conversation. You're listening to TNC Radio.live. Stay right there.
This blog on TNCRadio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Driving in the heat can create dangerous situations for truck drivers. Drivers need to take specific precautions before hitting the road in extreme heat. With the incoming heat wave dubbed as a heat dome by the National Weather Service, drivers need to be aware of how to safely drive in these weather conditions. Follow our 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Every truck driver needs to complete a pre-trip inspection before driving, especially in hot weather. Check tires. Heat can have a huge effect on your tires. As the temperature increases, so does the air pressure in your tires. During the hottest months of the year, it's important to frequently check your tire pressure. Frequently checking on your tires can save you from a blowout. To get an accurate measurement, wait for your tires to cool down before checking the pressure. The heat and friction from the road cause your tires to warm up, which will cause a rise in tire pressure. Also, don't be afraid to take a break every couple of hours to let your tires cool down. While traveling in the summer months, you may want to give yourself some extra time to stop and check on your tires. Protect your engine. Not only should you protect yourself from the heat this summer, but you should also protect your engine. One way to keep your engine from overheating is to frequently check the engine oil. The oil keeps the engine cool and keeps the parts running smoothly. Engine coolant is just as important as engine oil. Coolant helps prevent the engine from overheating in extremely hot temperatures. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature gauge while driving. If the gauge goes above the safe temperature, pull over and see what's going on. Failing to assess the situation could lead to engine failure. Also, make sure to check for leaks in the hoses. A cracked hose could lead to engine failure. Tips to protect yourself from hot weather. It's just as important to protect yourself during extremely hot weather. Follow these steps to keep yourself cool and safe during these hot months. Stock up on water. As the temperature increases, you need to increase your water intake. Make sure to always have water in your truck. You never know when you might get stuck in traffic or break down on the side of the road. Wear sunscreen. Many truck drivers forget this step. Even when you're in your truck, you're still exposed to the harmful UVA rays from the sun. Make sure to put sunscreen on before hitting the road. Wear light-colored clothes. Light-colored clothing reflects light, and dark-colored clothing absorbs it. Wearing light-colored, loose-fitting clothes helps you stay cooler and more comfortable on the road. And be sure to check out our blog, 6 Safety Tips for Truck Driving While Driving in the Rain. This blog on tncradio.live was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
tncradio.live, your commercial driver navigation station. And welcome back in tncradio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. I'm Tom Kelly, and I appreciate you taking some time there at the beginning of the program, Dr. Chris, to talk about the experience and feelings that people have. You know, if you don't live in a hurricane zone, and I do, and have been through this and have had to do the big hurricane cleanup and all that kind of stuff, we see the pictures on TV, but it's just living it is a completely different thing. So I guess the only thing that would be close to that is if you lived in an earthquake zone, and we haven't had a big earthquake, I guess, since the big one in San Francisco, what, in 87, 86, whenever that one was.
I think that was 1989. It was during the World Series, right?
Right, exactly.
Between the Giants and the A's, and it happened right there. You know, you mentioned an earthquake, which we don't know much about in Florida. I used to live in California, so I've been through minor ones. But I have a patient now who just told me this story a couple of weeks ago. I'll share it with you. It was too precious to keep to myself. But she said, you know, she had a bike accident, a bicycle accident. And she says, people always tell you the best thing to do is get right back on the bike, or, you know, you never forget how to ride a bike. So get back on the bike. So she said, in this case, it was literal. And so she got on her bike and she was starting to pedal and kept her balance and felt like all was good. And she was regaining her momentum and her confidence simultaneously. And then all of a sudden, like she just felt like she was losing control, and she crashed her bike into a parked car, and only to find out that there was an earthquake happening. You know, not everybody has the same luck.
Oh, goodness.
And this poor lady is coming to see me because she was involved in a head-on accident. So it's she's trying to get her confidence back to drive again, and you know. But anyway, she had that story in her memory to contend with.
I don't know.
So yeah, life can be challenging, and you know there can be hurricanes and earthquakes and divorces and betrayals, and you know just life is hard. Life is really hard.
It is, and the sooner you pick up on that, the easier it is to deal with it, I think.
Yeah, and you know, I'm going to give a talk later this week for a group of people who are graduating from a leadership class, and they asked me to come and speak to them. And one of the things I want to talk to them about is that the simple rules of life can sometimes be narrowed down to the lessons from a shampoo bottle.
Okay.
And that is lather, rinse, and repeat. Yeah. And to me, what that means in the real world, when you get out of the shower, love, lose, grieve, repeat. And these poor people who have just lost their homes, or people who lost a loved one or lost their car or whatever happened, you know, sometimes they lose a pet. And I'm always preaching, go ahead and grieve that pet. But, you know, a few months from now, you know, long after Muffy's gone, I want you to bring home Sparky. and I want you to love again. And I want you to outlive Sparky. And then I want you to say how Sparky was the greatest dog ever and bury him in the backyard just like you did with Muffy. And then I want you to bring home Duke, because that's the key in life. We have to love, and we have to lose, and we have to grieve, and then repeat. Love again, love again, try again. So there's so much loss and pain in this life. And I'm not going to tell people, oh, suck it up, or don't worry about it, or you're making too big a deal. I want them to grieve, and I want them to say goodbye, and I want them to release, and then I want them to love again. And so this storm and many other life's challenges and tragedies like it teach us that lesson again and again. I had a woman earlier today, Tom, who was saying that she's been depressed about 1.5 years since her last husband died. And she's just starting to date, but her girls are like, I'm not willing to even meet who you're dating. I don't want you to date anyone anymore. And then she's like, but I'm lonely. I'm sad. I'm not dead. My life's still... And she's right. She's right. She's still alive. She's here. You know, her husband died 1.5 years ago, but she's still alive. And if she's going to get better, she has to say goodbye to losses. She has to grieve. And she has to, you know, sign up again at the booth of life. Don't take my name off just yet. I'm still here.
Right.
So, you know, that's what I want people to hear in this, that these storms, that these losses, these tragedies, they're really painful. And I'm not going to say don't hurt, don't grieve. I'm going to say do exactly that. But don't you dare stop living, because your time isn't up. You're still here.
Very important, and something that, you know, it seems a lot harder to understand when you're 18 versus when you're 58.
Yeah. Most things are, except you're a whole lot smarter at 18. You just, or so you think.
Yeah, you do. You do. So let's jump into the social black belt, and we don't need to redo much of it, because we've been going through this and learning a lot, and I don't remember where we left off last time. How about that?
Well, we're in the midst of the third truth, Tom, which is that all behavior is purposeful and all behavior is goal-oriented. We do things because we get something from them, even though we're not always conscious of what the payoff is, right? So we talked about goals of misbehavior in children. We talked about why do young people cut themselves? Why do they bully? We talked about why do people worry? And we talked extensively about the payoff that we get from worry, because the vast majority of things that we worry about never happen. And then we talked about the antidote, if you will, to worry being faith. We talked about faith, 4 types of faith. Faith in God, basically saying, whatever happens to me, you know, I'm in an old Allstate commercial, I'm in the good hands, and God goes with me, and I trust God. And we have the research that says that people who believe like that have more joy and less anxiety, and they die more easily, meaning they're more accepting of their death because they believe they're being, absent from the body, present with the Lord, as they say. People of faith can recover faster from illness and divorce and so forth. And then we talked about some people have faith in fate, and they say things in the universe work out in the end, and if it's not working out, it's not the end. Or what comes around goes around, and I only do kind things, so I don't expect bad things. So they believe those things, and it works for them. And other people put their faith in others. And I gave the example of having zero anxiety when I'm on board a commercial airplane, and that's not because of my vast aviation skills, right? It's because I have total faith in the whole process. Pilot, co-pilot, ground crew, the whole thing. And I believe that. And therefore what? Therefore I have no anxiety when I fly. I could be flying from here to Honolulu, and I might be annoyed by how long I have to sit in a small space, but I have no anxiety because worry comes from the perception of threat. And I don't believe that there's any kind of threat. And so I'm not anxious. What I am is employing faith. And then the fourth kind of faith that we talked about is a faith in self. And, to be able to navigate what life brings, the challenges. And we all need that to some extent. There's a concept introduced by a rather famous psychologist named Albert Bandura. And Bandura talked about what he called self-efficacy, Tom, where a person goes through life believing that they have what it takes to deal with the twists and turns in the road, that they feel competent. That's part of what the social black belt is supposed to be about. Teach people enough skills to deal with the many, many challenges that life brings. We were just talking about trauma and loss and grief. All those things are part of a normal life, especially if you hang out on planet Earth for 85 years or so. You're going to have to deal with these things. So, what I'm talking about is having the ability to do what I need to do in life, or with self-efficacy, I know how to get that help.
And I'll ask them.
Like me, I'm talking to a mostly male audience, and a lot of these guys, these trucker guys, are way better at mechanical kinds of things than I'll ever be. I don't have that gene or that skill. My father didn't have it. I had no interest. I was never taught. Now I've grown up and I ain't got it. But what I do have, Tom, is I know how to pick up the phone and call the guy. So if I have a plumbing issue, I'm not panicked about it because I have self-efficacy to the point of I'll call the plumber guy. If I have an issue with the roof, I'll call the roofer. I'll call the insurance guy. I'll call the lawyer. I'm not worried about the different challenges because I do know how to reach out and get the help that's necessary. And so
what if the criticism,
I guess what I want people to know is that's a way to
brave enough to wear it.
It's a coping skill. It's a mindset. It's a way of reducing the perception of threat, which is what creates anxiety. So back to the purposefulness of behavior.
What if the criticism,
we keep things because we think we need them.
Stop the shaking.
And this is a really simple concept to explain. And then I like teaching people about how many things they're holding on to without even realizing that they're holding on to it. So one of the things we talk about people holding on to is worry. And we say, one poll or survey found that 1 out of 3 humans were like chronic worriers, people you could walk up to day or night. And if they're awake, you can say, what are you worried about? And they'll tell you because they're worried. But I want to get into tonight, I want to teach people why we hold on to resentment. For the guys out there who grew up with any degree of faith, they were taught, you need to forgive. They were taught that, forgiveness is necessary because you were forgiven by God and you need to forgive, just like it says in the Lord's Prayer that many of us were taught to recite, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, or forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Whatever translation you want to use, we were taught forgive. But nobody teaches you why you don't forgive. And I'm going to put that into this third truth, that we hold on to resentment because of what it does for us, not because of what it does to us.
All right. Well, hey, we're going to check that out. I apologize that we went over a little bit, so there was a little mess there, but we're back on track, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned.
So where do feelings come from? Most people think feelings come from their situations, what's happening in their lives, or they think they come from other people. And they say things like, you make me love you, or you piss me off. They hand all the responsibility to other people. But I have news for you. It's not situations. It's not other people. It's not circumstances. Feelings come from the way I perceive the world, from the way you perceive the world. Our perceptions of the world create emotion. Let me give you my very favorite example. A 65-year-old gentleman walks into my office on a Tuesday morning. And I say to him, how's it going? And he says, oh, not good, Doc, not good. And I say, well, what's going on? And he says, my daughter, she didn't call me, no card, nothing for Father's Day. How is he feeling? He's feeling hurt. He's feeling rejected. He's feeling unimportant. He's feeling unappreciated. He's wounded, and he's angry, and he's resentful. His perception is, with all the things I have done for my daughter over the years to support her and promote her, pay for her college, she skunks me for Father's Day. I looked him in the eyes and I said, Brian, Father's Day's next Sunday. Within a second, Brian laughed. He was amused. He was embarrassed. He was hopeful. All of his emotions changed in a split second. How did that happen? Not because the facts changed. The facts were Father's Day was on the calendar for the next weekend the entire time. The one thing that changed was his perception of the facts. He went from thinking, she doesn't care, I'm unimportant, I don't matter to her, to, oops, Father's Day is next weekend. She hasn't thought any of those things. Changing your thinking, changing your perception, changes your feelings. In the next Mental Health Minute, we're going to talk about some things that also create and contribute to our emotions.
Be sure to catch the Truckers Network radio show with your host, Shelley Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here on TNCRadio.live.
All right, welcome back in TNCRadio.live. I'm Tom Kelly along with Dr. Christopher Cortman, and this is Building Strong Minds.
Well, I would love to pick up right where we left off, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talk about, why do humans hold on to resentment? And just before I get into that, I'm going to give you a really basic understanding of what I'm talking about, that we keep things because we need them. We have a place in Florida. I don't know if it's a Florida place or a national or international organization. I just don't know. But it's called Goodwill. And when we have things in this town that we no longer want, clothing especially, but it could be anything, we just take it to Goodwill and we drop it off and they go, you want a receipt? No, just keep it. And then what they do is, if they could find any worth to it, is they clean it up and then they resell it. And that's how they do what they do at Goodwill. So if I said to you, Tom, that I also have a part-time gig, I volunteer for Goodwill, and we need stuff to make our program work, and we need clothing. Do you think you might have some stuff you don't wear anymore? And you say, yeah, of course I do. So you invite me over to your house, and we walk into your walk-in closet, and I start looking in your spacious closet at all the clothes you've amassed over the years, and I say, hey, I really like this shirt. And you go, that old thing? Take it. And I say, well, what about these trousers here? And you say, honestly, I don't even remember buying them. I never wear them. Didn't even know I own them. Take it. And I say, well, what about, and you go, don't touch that tie. That's my favorite tie. I wear it at least once a month. It's, yeah, I'm not prepared to give that up because I think I need it. It's a very simple concept. We keep things because we think we need them. And that could be something like our favorite joke or punchline, to our favorite pair of shoes, to even resentment and certain mindsets. So I know you get that, but the question that would flow from that quite naturally is, why in the world would I need resentment? I mean, doesn't resentment make us miserable? And the truth to that is it sure does. Resentment makes people unhappy, difficult to deal with. It doesn't do good things for your digestion and your whole GI system. It doesn't do good things for your heart. When a person's angry, it's not, they're not living in their healthiest place. So, all right, where's the payoff? Why in the world would I hold on to resentment? I'm going to give you 4 reasons, and it's not like they're in any order, but all 4 of them are rather important. And I very frequently ask patients if they're stuck on something, if they've kept a resentment for a long time and don't even realize that they're keeping it. They don't realize they have a choice to release it. They just think, this is just how I feel. So I'm angry with my brother, or I'm angry with my ex, or whatever, or whoever it is. So here's the first one. As long as I hold on to a resentment, I am not responsible for myself. Let's put this another way. The moment that I let go of my resentment, my anger, I am now 100% responsible for my own happiness and success. It is easier, Tom, to blame my mother for dressing me funny as a kid than it is to take responsibility for my life at this time. It's easier to blame my ex-business partner for ripping me off, for the government for keeping me down, for, some racial group for the way they've treated me and my family. It's easier to blame my father for abandoning my family when we were kids. It's easy to blame. And it's harder to say I'm an adult and now I'm responsible for my own well-being. I'm an adult and it's up to me now to be a happy and successful person. That the onus of responsibility falls on my shoulders. Well, it's easier to just keep blaming. I got screwed earlier in my life, and you know what? Any one of us can say that more than once. We all have stories about how we were screwed over by somebody, and that could be the defining moment. We talked about football during the break, you and I. We can always say that officials one call. That's what cost us the game. That ruined it. That ruined our season. That ruined our, it's easier to blame than to say, Hey, what about the other 59 minutes and 47 seconds besides that one play? What about that?
Right.
So that's the first reason why people actively hold on to resentment.
That's very insightful, and just kind of let's work on that for just. I just want to unpack that a little bit more, because I mean the question you brought up before, I think is very valid. Why do people hold on to these things? And so I'm just kind of going through. I have a lot of flaws as a person. But one of the things I've learned over the years is not to hold on to resentment. As I like to tell people, I flare up and cool down very quickly, and I tend not to remember what the argument was about, whether that's by choice or. I can tell you entire conversations that took place, years ago, but if I had an argument 2 hours ago with somebody, I tend to forget the whole thing. And I'm always ready to move on and make the peace. So that's a good thing, and I think I'm healthier because of that. But it took a lot of work to get to that point, because there's something natural there. Holding on to resentment is not an American thing. It's not a man thing. It's not a woman thing. Perhaps there are some groups that do it more than others, but the truth of it is, I know people from every ilk of life who hold on to resentment and let resentment be the excuse for whatever else is wrong in their life or whatever other behavior. Why do I drink? Well, because of what happened to me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the excuse that allows the behavior that I can't explain or don't want to explain any other way. So I find that having a resentment is just the excuse maker.
Yeah, and people really don't always understand that consciously. They just know that they have been feeling angry and frustrated ever since this happened, and they're stuck there. They are stuck there. And to understand why I stay stuck there and what I can do now to change that is difficult, because now it puts all the responsibility back in my court. Even though my father did this to me growing up, what am I willing to do about it now? And I'll hear people being actively blamed by people who are not in therapy. Like, my adult son blames us for everything. Well, what is he doing with his life? He's drinking and he's blaming us. That's what he's doing. And what he has to do ultimately is to take responsibility. And that's very scary, very alarming, because now all the responsibility is back to me. So that's the first reason that I've cited and written about.
Okay.
In a couple of my books, that this concept.
Well, we're already to the point where we have less than 10 minutes left. So let's do this. Let's take our last break here real quick and come back and wrap this one up and maybe have a chance to peek in on the second reason.
Sure.
All right, let's do that. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. You're listening to TNC Radio.live. Stay right there.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Claire Dunn, and you're listening to TNC Radio.live.
TNC Radio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
See, I told you that'd be a quick break. TNC Radio.live, back here with you on a Monday night, talking live with Dr. Christopher Cortman. And this is Building Strong Minds. And we were just talking about the value, the reason that people hold on to resentment. You gave us the first idea. What's the second?
Again, these are not in any order, but they are just how I like to think of them. The second reason is that holding on to resentment serves as a protective wall against being hurt again. As long as I continue to hate you, you can't get near me again. The great street philosopher Billy Joel once said, "Some people find that it's easier to hate than to wait anymore." That in his song, An Innocent Man. I have met so many people over the years who are done loving or opening themselves up to the possibility of being hurt. And they'll say things like, "No more men for me. I'm done dating women," or, whatever they're saying, because as long as they keep their resentment, they're using that resentment as a protective wall so no one ever hurts them again. And it's, again, it's purposeful. The whole point in the third truth is that behavior is purposeful and there's a payoff. And what is the payoff? The payoff is protecting self against being devastated by one more betrayal or rejection or abandonment, one more person lying to me. What do you get when you kiss a guy? You get enough germs to catch pneumonia. You do, and he'll never phone you. I'll never fall in love again. Dionne Warwick, right? We have an understanding that on some level, if I don't play again, you can't hurt me. People who don't drive again after an accident, people who won't play ball again after an injury. It's the same concept. I hold on to my resentment. I hold on to my fear because that way you won't hurt me anymore.
Now, that doesn't mean to say, though, so we'll use football as the example. Tua really shouldn't play football again right away.
No, we're not. No, yeah. Tua had no business being on that field.
But my point being, sometimes it is appropriate to have distance between you and. If you hit me in the nose 3 times, probably I shouldn't sit next to you for a 4th time.
Absolutely, that would be wisdom,
right?
As opposed to foolishness,
right?
And what I'm proffering here is that we can keep a general attitude of resentment because we're holding that as protection. So no one can ever get close to me again. I have no more friends. I'm talking with my daughter about this. There were a couple of girls, she's at a new school now. A couple of girls said they weren't going to the football game, so she didn't go. And then they posted that they were at the football game and she was crushed. And the easiest response to that is, I don't want to try. I don't want to make any friends. I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want anyone to hurt me again. And what's the response to that? Well, the first response is go ahead and feel how that feels. I'm not going to tell you that doesn't hurt. I'm not going to tell you that didn't feel like a kick in the teeth. And at the same time, I want you to know that that's where those 14-year-old girls are in terms of their skill levels. You may need to make some other friends, but the answer is not to say, no more friends. That's it. I'll never try again. That wouldn't be a good response. That wouldn't be a healthy response. But it is the second reason we're talking about. Why keep resentment? Because it'll protect you against getting hurt again.
Gotcha. Hey, we've only got a couple of minutes left. The time goes by so fast when we're talking, and this has been really helpful, I think. In the couple of minutes that we have left, tell people how they can learn more about you and how they can find your books.
Yeah, they can always find me at srqshrink.com. They can always look up TikTok Shrink if they're on TikTok, and I have more than 100 mental health minutes they can listen to. I have 4 published books now, and they can always get that on Amazon. The Social Black Belt is 2 of the books are in regard to the Social Black Belt. One is written specifically for adults, and that was the book that started all of this, called Your Mind: An Owner's Manual for a Better Life. And the latest book is the Social Black Belt, and that was rewritten specifically for adolescents, and that's the one that we're using in the schools and hoping will catch fire because it really, it covers all 10 of these truths that's taking me forever to share with this particular audience. But I don't mind it taking so much time, Tom, because I really like teaching every one of these concepts. And if there's anybody out there that learns anything from it, it seems worthwhile and
Absolutely.
a worthy venture for me.
Absolutely. Hey, just a moment left, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. Since you are so close to ground zero where the hurricane hit this past week, I'm sure a lot of people are out there going, how can I help? What can I do? Any words of wisdom for those who want to do something? Red Cross?
Well, that's one that a lot of us tend to trust. Some people have their own organizations that they feel better about. Maybe it's a faith-based thing, or some other community service that they believe in, United Way or whatever. But some people just have the time and the energy to volunteer themselves and come and serve some food or pack some boxes, or you can always donate clothing and stuff, things you don't need. And yeah, it's not a bad place to start with the Red Cross or the United Way or whatever organization you believe in. And, you can always get involved in your local house of worship and give that way as well. So,
okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Corbin. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel, right here on TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned next for Hope Zavara and the Driver Life Podcast.
Thank you.